I have a confession to make. I don't know any blackfellas. But like a lot of inner-city, progressively minded middle-class white people, I like to think of myself as pro-reconciliation, and yet the only Indigenous Australians I ever meet are here, on the street. And how is it that we interact? Which begs the question, how real is reconciliation to the millions of well-meaning Australians just like me? In 2009, Elizabeth Haji-Efremidis, a business development consultant from inner Melbourne, went to Alice Springs to work directly with the local Aranda people on an employment project.
I guess if you asked me probably a year ago what does reconciliation mean to you, and I guess I would have given a very glib answer about very much, you know, reconciling the whole Indigenous, integrating, I guess, in the Indigenous culture with the white Australian culture, but not really understanding what that actually means until my experience in Alice Springs. And the other thing I was really taken aback by and really got excited by was the whole cultural aspect, and I mean the Indigenous cultural aspect, which, because in Melbourne, being in the city, I personally have not really been exposed to it apart from what you see in the media and in St Kilda, that sort of thing. It's not always a very positive picture, it's more of a negative picture. We look at the issue through Western eyes, and Western, probably European eyes, because of our own background and history of Australia. And I realised, if I didn't even understand or even comprehend with the Indigenous side of the issue, we actually have to put new eyes in.
So would you say that for well-meaning middle-class white folks like ourselves, that reconciliation is a fairly abstract notion? We don't really understand what it is really?
Yeah, I remember when you asked me this question, I have to say I was kind of taken aback by, you know, what do you mean by reconciliation? What does it actually mean? Fundamentally, practically, what does it actually mean? And I know, for me, prior to going to Alice Springs, I had a very, naive idea behind it, you know. But I don't think we really stopped to think about what do they actually mean on a day-to-day basis? What does it actually look like fundamentally? And it's great in concept, what does it actually mean in practicality? And I think that's until you actually immerse yourself, particularly in the Northern Territory, when you think of it all, and you see the good, bad and ugly, what's going on there, you realise, wow, this is no simple solution here. And that's when it dawned on me too, that there is no panacea, there is no white bullet here, there is no one solution or simple solutions. It's a complex issue, and it's very much a layered issue.
Of course, for the vast majority of Australians, social and political issues, whether it's climate change, health reform or reconciliation, are just things they hear about in the media. Black Australia doesn't live here. It's somewhere else, virtually invisible. I know I'm not alone when I say that I'm thankful Kevin Rudd said sorry. Sure, it's just a word, and words don't wipe away injustice or sustain communities or provide better healthcare. But perhaps symbolism is all most of us have. Reconciliation, are we there yet?
I don't think so, no, because, well, the whole I'm sorry thing from Kevin Rudd and stuff, like, I think that helped, but I don't think we're quite there yet. I think there still needs to be more done.
I don't think so. I think it's more of a formality. Like, you sort of see a lot of events in the city where they'll sort of put it as a footnote, oh, and we would like to acknowledge that Indigenous people used to own this land. But I think it's, yeah, like I said, it's just more of a thing that they sort of get out of the way so they can't get told off later.
I think they're taking steps, and I think they're definitely making progress, but no, we're not. Not yet.
I think we're far from it.
I don't think so, no.
No, I'd say we're not there just yet.
I think we've got an awful long way to go. An awful long way to go, you know. I mean, we don't understand their culture. The average white person doesn't understand how they see the world, or doesn't even want to know how they see the world. Yeah.
Are we there yet? I think we've got a long way to go. to be honest, a long way to go. And until we really understand what we mean by reconciliation, both sides, I don't think we can even attempt to even get there, whatever there actually means, to be honest. Yeah.
Which brings me to confession number 2. You will have noticed by now that this film has featured not one black voice. Perhaps you'd like to know why. In my everyday life, I'm a freelance journo, have been for years. I've interviewed tribal elders and famous black musicians and visited Indigenous communities. In fact, it would have been relatively easy for me to use my media contacts to conjure up an Aboriginal presence in this film. But I chose not to. Why? Because it would have been a lie. For all my liberal-minded ideas about reconciliation, blackness is invisible in my life. Whether we like it or not, most people in this country will never really get to know an Aboriginal Australian. They will not work with an Aboriginal. They will not invite an Aboriginal around to dinner. Is reconciliation an impersonal abstract for non-indigenous Australians? So I would like to start by asking if either of you actually know closely an Indigenous person here in Australia.
No.
I really don't.
I used to go to a primary school in the country where there were a few Aboriginal students, so...
But here in the city?
No.
No, not personally. No, I don't really know anyone that's Indigenous.
Not necessarily have close personal contact, but you know, I'm Australian, so obviously I've got a connection there.
I know a few, but I don't have any close friends or close relationships with Indigenous people. So.
Place I come from is called Nanitara,
Yep.
which was originally where the old girls used to go when they couldn't go walkabout anymore.
Yep.
So yeah, I know a lot of people.
What about here in the city?
Here in the city it's a bit different.
At the end of the day though, how much does it matter? If I don't have meaningful contact with Indigenous Australia, does it mean that my support for reconciliation is nothing more than soft middle-class bleating? Am I simply a guilty white sheep? Of course, there are some in the media and places like this who would use such questions as an argument against reconciliation. They would say that sorry is a mere symbol. I would say that a symbol is better than no symbol. I would argue that a government taking some steps is better than a government taking the children away. For even if I never get to know an Aboriginal person, I can still use my vote, and sometimes even my voice, to nudge the reconciliation process along. That fair go notion that we all claim to cherish so much, surely if it means anything at all, it applies to everyone, even people we don't know.